Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Welcome to you live from Kaduna State, where CADInvest 5.0 is taking place today. We've got Mohammed Sani Abdullahi, who is the Chief of Staff to the Governor, as well as Samuel Arowan, Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs. So CADInvest, gentlemen, thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Infrastructure, industrialization, and innovation is the key focus this time. But, well, as Chief of Staff, I mean, you've been involved in this for a while. You've spoken separately about the benefits, the program, the initiative, the drive. But having seen 4 years on, now this is the fifth one. Normally you do this analysis, where you're coming from, where you're headed. Are you wholly satisfied with the results you've seen, or the areas that you think could have done way better than we did in this area?
Well, Chamberlain and team, welcome once again back to Kaduna. We're quite happy to have you here at the fifth version of this investment summit. I remember the first one in 2016 when it was a lot of hope and promise and plans and visions that we really wanted to outline or look towards in the next couple of years. We're very happy that 5 years down the line, anybody that is visiting Kaduna today can concretely see the changes, can concretely see that vision coming into reality. It's no more about promises. This is about delivery, it's about implementation. Over the last couple of years, what we've really focused on in Kaduna is improving the governance that will deliver the public goods. And what are the public goods? It's investment in infrastructure, it's improved business environment, and these are there for everyone to see. So if you're going around Kaduna today, you cannot ignore the quality of infrastructure that we've built over the last 4 or 5 years. You cannot ignore the businesses that are reopening shop, the closed businesses that are opening, the new ones that are coming in. You cannot ignore the jobs that have been created, the skill sets of the people of Kaduna. You can't ignore the hope of the young people. And so we're really happy with where we are. We're not where we want to be. Of course, we're still wanting to do much more.
Okay. Let me jump in, pardon me. How do you, what yardstick do you use in measuring the investment climate, especially in the wake of the larger society and what's happening economically as well? I know in 2017 there was talk about recession while you kicked off on this one as well. So how do you measure, especially when you hear what people think about the economy?
Well, I think it's quite easy to measure actually, because when the governor decided to run in 2014, we had done an analysis, and Kaduna at the time was ranked the worst place to do business in the whole of northern Nigeria. It was number 24, I think, nationally in this ease of doing business report by the World Bank. So not by any national or state government, but by the international reputable organization that ranks these things. And over the last 4 years, we've emerged as number one in Nigeria. Now that's very easy to measure. These are businesses giving feedback about how they are interacting with people of Kaduna State, how they're interacting with the government of Kaduna State. And so when you come into Kaduna today, setting up a business, setting up shop, opening and getting the support, enforcing contracts, all of that really has been simplified. So it's very easy to measure, and we're quite proud of where we are.
Almost when we come for this, there's always to talk about a thing or two about security. That's where Samuel comes in.
Yeah.
You can't have this kind of investment without security. And your office, it's not an easy one, because many always will disagree with some of the steps you're taking, the measures you're putting in place.
Yeah.
So talk to us about security. What is going on now?
Well, so far so good. If you look at the security situation in the state, you will agree with us that the state government, alongside with security agencies, are doing quite well in the area of security. Let's look at the Birnin belt, for instance. As we speak, an operation is in progress from Birnin to Giwa to part of Chukun.
What kind of operation?
Military operation. You must have heard of Operation Bada Mamaki, Operation Wutan Daji, Operation Hadarin Daji, and recently the military also started what is called Operation Sanity Sahel with headquarters in Faskari in Kaduna State. And 2-3 days ago, if you are following the trend, the defense headquarters actually reeled out a lot of successes that the military achieved through several air interdictions, neutralizing scores of bandits, destroying their camps. And if I bring you back to the strategic Kaduna-Abuja road, it may also interest you to know that there's a defense headquarters response that is called Operation Thunder Strike. Added to that is the police Operation Puff Ada. There is air component of Operation Thunder Strike as well as a ground component. And they are actually taking the battle to the bandits in and around identified camps within the region. And the same thing if we move to the southern Kaduna.
Just before you move there, you mentioned the Abuja-Kaduna Expressway, and for a lot of people, it's a no-go area for them.
I don't think so.
So the question is, if you could rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, just how safe is it to travel?
I can tell you without any doubt that we have littered the Kaduna-Abuja road with security assets, and the reports or feedback we are getting, we are okay with what we are getting, even though we've not gotten to a point where we are 100% satisfied with what is going on within the belt.
When you say litter that road with security, what components of security
I have mentioned to you that we have a military response called Operation Thunder Strike. It's a tri-service operation comprising different.
Break it down to the 19-year-old, 20-year-old.
Okay, what we are trying.
And there are soldiers on the way.
Yes, there are
policemen.
Yes,
that can give people peace of mind. Just break it down.
Yes. For instance, from Rijana to Kateri to Jire to Audu Jongom, up to toll gate general area, up to Tafa within our border with Niger State. The presence of military is open, is very clear, people can see. And it may also interest you to know that we've also worked hard to ensure that there is a military base, like a military base that have an helipad. If you have targets within our border with Niger State, when you have a gunship, there is no point. There will be a delay by the time the gunship will have to fly back to Kaduna or Abuja or Mina to refuel and come back to action. But with the helipad situated at Kateri, within minutes, a gunship can come, refuel, and move back to action.
No, just before that, you didn't give me my scale of 1 to 10, because I like to put that. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate it?
The fact that the road is motorable. The fact that the road is motorable and that people are moving around the road, we are okay with that. But I have told you here that we are not 100% satisfied, but we are working very hard.
50% satisfied.
Well, it's left to Nigerians who will give you an objective analysis. But I can tell you that there is a lot of misrepresentation about the Kaduna-Abuja road. Recently, someone came with a story that scores of passengers were actually kidnapped on the road. And later on, it turned out to be false. It's not true. So people will always want to create apprehension. People will always want to draw us back. But what I'm saying, what is clear, is there on the ground that people are moving in and around Kaduna-Abuja road.
Are there also false information going around about Southern Kaduna? You wanted to talk about it earlier.
Certainly, it's everywhere. If you look at the politicization of security issue, it's not only restricted to Southern Kaduna alone. We now have a new industry, an industry that parades an array of security experts and security consultants who will come on the air, who will tell you so many things. But if you do a lot of post-information verification of what they are saying, you realize that it is not true. And I also want you to allow me to talk about what we are doing in the Southern Kaduna belt. We have what is called Operation Safe Haven. Operation Safe Haven is working in parts of Bauchi, Northern Plateau, and the 5 local government areas out of 8 in southern part of the state. And we have a military base for the first time for over 40 years. There has always been call, there has always been a recommendation that there's a need to site a military base dedicated to internal security in that general area. But unfortunately, it was not possible. But with our coming in 2015, by 2017, we now have a base. There are special forces of the Nigerian Army, special forces of the Nigerian Air Force, and the Defense Headquarters Special Forces, as we speak, they are there on the ground.
I know you know we'll have the Chief of Staff as well, so we can only allow you as much time, so we can, he can also talk about some things going on. Well, but you know, demonstrable jobs, skills, we spoke about some of these things the last time in terms of the human capacity and you know the impact of that, because if you're coming in with huge investment, you need that base where you can fall back. What kind of impact has this had on that class of people?
Well, I mean, thank you once again, but I think it's important to note where we are today. We've committed for this second term to spend about $1 billion, over $1 billion on infrastructure. And that's because there's a clear link between infrastructure and growth, between infrastructure and investment. If you look at the AFDB's recent report, they mentioned that over half of Africa's growth can be tied to infrastructure expansion. So really for us, we're expanding. If you go around Kaduna, as I mentioned, we've launched an urban renewal program that is really doing an unprecedented expansion of the Kaduna city. Kaduna was built for 750,000 people, the city. That's 4 local governments. Today we're 4 million, right? The same thing with Zaria, the same thing with Kafancha. So without that expansion, you can clearly see that the infrastructure has been dilapidating over the years because it's under the pressure of so many people. And so right now we're engaging in the largest infrastructure expansion that Kaduna has ever seen. And of course, side by side with this, as you've mentioned, is the people. The innovations in governance that the governor has brought up in the second term is 5 policy councils. The first one is on human capital development. That's chaired by the deputy governor, and what they focus on is how do we provide the human capital that's needed in Kaduna to spur growth, to spur development, and support the other sectors. The economic development sector, which is mainly responsible for a lot of the investments and the revenues that you see, is chaired by Jimmy Lawal, and it's really pushing a lot of the investments, pushing a lot of the revenues. Infrastructure is what I chair, and that's really responsible for a lot of the stuff that you see.
So this $1 billion,
Yes.
how are you getting it?
So you in the segment before ours, you talked to the revenue authority.
Yeah.
We're pushing a lot on expanding the revenues in Kaduna. We're closing all the loopholes, we're banning cash collections. We've continued to do that over the last 4 or 5 years, and that's why our revenues have jumped 400% from 13 billion to 44 billion last year, and we're hoping to keep that at track. But beyond that is really the efficiency of public spending. We are ensuring that for every dollar that we spend of government money, it is going to something that is productive.
I haven't heard you talk about the private sector in all this.
Of course, the private sector is critical. We're doing a lot of PPP projects now on infrastructure with the private sector. We're doing shopping malls, we're doing markets, right? The one thing that we're really trying to unlock is private sector spending in roads, which is very difficult. In fact, in Nigeria, I think the only reputable one is probably the Lekki Expressway, which is still a bit iffy. But we're working on the western bypass in Kaduna with private sector financing. It's taking a time to close, but that's what we're working on.
You know, interestingly, you talked about roads, and I know there's this infrastructure master plan, I think 2018 to 2050. So you have targets for years, and for roads specifically, you talked about, you know, state and local government roads. The baseline was 7,900 kilometers. How far have you gone now? It's like 2 years after?
Yes, so our target was to do 400 kilometers a year over the next 32 years, basically. At minimum 400 kilometers of road. And I would say that we are hitting that mark. We've launched the program to deliver 10 kilometers for each local government. That's 230 kilometers right there. within the Kaduna urban area. We're doing probably another 50, 60 kilometers this year. Of course, resources remain a challenge. The delivery of the private sector itself becomes a challenge because what they put up is not what you see. For example, the federal government awarded the Abuja-Kano road to Julius Berger. I mean, this is not the Julius Berger that we used to know because the delivery is very, very underwhelming. You know, so we have these challenges with the private sector. We continue to deal with it even as a state government. So we are shooting to get there, maybe a bit off track, but we're getting there.
Talking about infrastructure, you've only spoken about roads. Is that all the infrastructure? I wanted you to actually measure the gap of infrastructure that Kaduna State government needs to close for Kadinvest to always make sense.
Definitely. So when we did the infrastructure master plan, we looked at two versions of infrastructure, or three: economic infrastructure and social infrastructure. The private sector is not very keen to invest in social infrastructure, schools, hospitals, and all of that. They're more interested in doing things that provide short-term profits back. So the government clearly has to invest in the social part. When we did, we have over 4,000 schools in Kaduna today, but with the population that we have, we need to double that, right? The number of classrooms, we need to double. And that's why we're spending a lot on building school infrastructure. If you look at the hospitals that we have, so every year we have a target, and if we don't hit that target, we know that our social goals are falling behind.
Let's wind down. Just for a moment, I just want to take the chief of staff on this one thing. Power is critical to infrastructure and investments, and that's under the purview of the federal government, largely. What's the plan?
Yeah, so we are working with the federal government. For example, Kudenda, we've been working with them to see how we can take it over. We're building a distribution center, I think, at the Kaduna Green Economic Zone. We're doing a lot on power to support what the federal government is doing, but mostly on distribution and also efficiency. So, for example, we're working to move our water board to solar, because water consumes about 40% of the energy that we're using. So if we can free up that energy, we can dedicate it to industry, and that's the plan.
Okay, if you could make it quick, because government's coming up next. Yeah. What do you think is the solution to the challenge in Southern Kaduna?
Well, first and foremost, it's recourse to the law. Recourse to the law. If I say recourse to the law, what I simply mean is this. We're not living in Banana Republic. If there is any problem, what people need to do is to recourse to the law. And also the issue of speeding of administration of justice, And it's also important for communities to know that peace, like I keep on saying, is not a one-way traffic. It's a two-way traffic. There's a need for communities to work toward peace. So it's a multidimensional approach. Sure. Apart from the kinetic, there are non-kinetic approaches. And on our own side, Kaduna State government will continue to pursue our peace building vigorously, while we are also doing a lot in the area of kinetic approach.
All right, then Samuel Aruan, Commissioner of Internal Security and Home Affairs. I was asking, what's the difference? And then Mohammed Sani Abdullahi, Chief of Staff to the Governor. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on today.
Thank you.
All right, so we will be back in a moment. The Governor will be next. Don't go away.